All right, everyone. Welcome back to Student Dream TV. I'm your host, Nina, and I am so excited to continue to bring you the best money, investing, and startup tips so that you can secure the bag before and after graduation. And so, for anybody who's ever heard of Versus, you're going to be really excited to hear from my next guest today. His name is Arthur Johnson, and he is the mind and the creative and the director behind Versus. And so if you've ever wanted to figure out how can I be a leading creative director full-time, being able to bring to life the sounds of some of the best artists in the world, keep listening. All right, Mr. Art Johnson, thank you for taking the time to be with us today in full quarantine mode. I appreciate you.
What's happening, Nina? What's happening? How are you? How are you?
Man, I'm living my best life in Brooklyn, in the crib, shut down, but not defeated. I'm still standing, still strong.
Good, good. I'm glad.
How's everything out in LA?
Good. When everything happened, when we fell into this quarantine, I was in LA on work. I was doing a music video, and LA is where I'm from, but I live in New York now. I live in Brooklyn, actually.
Okay.
I live in Williamsburg, and I was visiting my mom, and I stay here when I'm visiting in LA, and this pandemic was not expected for any of us, I think, and
Wow.
I know, and so I've been here with my mother for the last 2 months, or
Wow.
2 to 3 months now, and it's been sort of a blessing in disguise because it's been a way for us to get closer. And
Nice.
but yeah, I'm sitting in my mom's apartment. I'm in her bedroom right now, and we're just making it
Let's
happen,
go, mama.
making it work. Let's go, mama.
Right. Well, thank you again, man, for taking the time. I'm glad you and your family are safe. And I
Mm.
briefly introduced you to the Student Dream community, but I'd love for you to just introduce yourself in terms of, who you are. You already said where you're from, but what you do.
Yeah, I mean, uh, you gotta ask me direct questions because
Yeah.
let me know exactly what you want to know. My name is Art, and I am a creative director, and yeah, I'm from LA.
Come on.
I have been working in this industry, in this field, for the better part of a decade now, so
Hmm.
I like to say I'm just getting started.
I
And
love it.
yeah, I started off in music, and I transfer and I made an idea to transition into doing directing, into doing video work. So there's a lot there. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And it's so interesting because when I was doing just more watching of all your work, I was like, yo, it immediately made me think of Hype Williams and just how growing up watching his music videos were so exciting. It just makes
Mm.
sound come alive. And
Mm.
one of the
Thank you.
things that yeah, nah, for real. And one of the things that you're quoted as saying is that the projects you're most drawn to are the ones that explore our humanity, who we
Mm.
are, how we relate to one another, and how we can empower ourselves to overcome obstacles and differences. And so, with that being kind of
Mm.
just your philosophy when it comes to creating, what's been some of the just most interesting projects that you've gotten to work on that really have allowed you to do just that?
I think there were there's a couple projects that come to mind specifically lately.
Yeah.
I just did a project for Instagram that was around National Eating Disorder Awareness.
Hmm.
And that was a really powerful project for me because, I met a lot of people on that project we were interviewing, that were sharing their stories. And I just feel like, we live in a culture that's moving towards compassion, but
Mm.
there's still a lot of room to grow. And so to see these people that have experienced, oppression, or have experienced some sort of, um, having experienced always people being so nice to them, um,
Yeah.
and been able to find the courage to be able to speak about that, and not only be able to be brave enough to just talk about it and share their story, but also be able to allow me to be in the space with them and to be allow me to be able to help share that story was really powerful for me. One specific example was my friend that I met on the job. His name is Kelvin. And he was talking about something that really struck me, how Black men, or how men in general, suffer in silence, how we feel that we don't necessarily have feelings, you know, sometimes, or we can't share the way that we feel. We can't express that we're hurt. We can't express that we need help. And there's this whole culture around that where we're not allowed to talk about how we feel, or we feel that way. We think that, you know, we sense that in our social awareness. And I related to that, and I felt that when he said that, and it's something that's just poison, you know, this idea that we can't and we don't have feelings, you know. And in order for us to be able to connect fully, in order to be full people, we have to be able to share our full selves. So I really enjoyed the experience of working on that project. We had a couple other wonderful interviewees or people that shared their story, Jude and Shira, and it was just a wonderful project. So I really love that one specifically. And it was called Come As You Are. I love the name of it. Yeah, Come As You Are.
And so tell me just how you got into creative directing, right? You've been in this space 10 years. Was this something that you knew that you wanted to do growing up? How did you stumble into it?
Well, okay. So when I was in college, I was in a music college. I went to Berklee College of Music, and
nice. I'm from Boston. 617 in the house.
What's up, man? What's up? Yeah. So I decided, you know, from a young age that I wanted to be in music. My first mentors were Stevie Wonder and Ricky Minor.
Nice.
They were good friends of my family, and so, you know, undoubtedly I had a really great presence of music around me. And my sister was a classically trained opera singer. My father sang a little bit, but he was a doctor. My mother is a dancer. She does international folk dancing. My brother's a songwriter. So there's a lot of music in my family. And so I decided to go to music college and hone in my production and songwriting skills. But once I was there, I realized, you know, I want to understand the business of this. I want to understand how things work behind the scenes, because I can't just be a creator, because then I won't know where my money's going.
Say that.
And so I decided to get a degree in music business when I was there. And then and with that, I started my own record label. And so I picked an artist, you know, just like a random student, you know, and
this is while you were in school.
This is while I was in school.
Come on, y'all. Do you hear that, people? Come on. You don't got to wait.
You know, the thing is that you really have to start, early, you know. You start whenever you have the inclination that you have to do something, that's when you do it. You know, I feel like for me, I always just wanted to be more, you know. I was always attracted to this idea of mastery or greatness. And so I always was just trying to figure it out, you know, and I just would dabble in a lot of different things. And so the record label yielded me working on projects with some of my friends at school and my great friends there, that allowed us to, like, we had wonderful material, you know. They were the best musicians that I had ever met and in the world. And so with that, I was like, okay, now we have this great music project, but how do we get it to the work? We need to make visuals.
Yeah.
And so I started to invest in some camera equipment, and I ran around with my little DSLR camera and started filming some stuff. And then I had a lot of friends. It was during the time when YouTube was starting the cover series, you know, when people were starting to cover different songs and they were getting a lot of attention for it. And so I had a lot of friends that were participating in that, and they were shooting covers for for other people's songs. And then one of my friends, Sid Sriram, asked me if I could film him doing his cover. And I did. And then that video was a hit. It was like, I don't know, it had like 1 million views. And I was like, at that
Wow.
time, that was like crazy, you know?
Is it
And
still up
so,
on YouTube?
yeah, it's still up. It's a awesome cover. I still love it.
What's it called? I want to link to it.
Yeah, it's called We All Try by Frank
Try.
Ocean, but Sid
Okay.
Sriram's cover. Yeah, I could send it to you.
All right, cool.
But basically, that led me on a path of starting to do more things visually. The cover allowed me to then see, okay, video is just another form of storytelling. And I started off songwriting, and that was storytelling. So then I just figured that, moving into this pathway, it's kind of a no-brainer for me, and it worked. For some reason it worked. It connected, and people saw my work, and they really were pulled emotionally by it, and
Yeah.
it felt good to make, and it felt easy to make. So then I focused there for a long time. So I'm still in that space.
That's dope. I think the underlying thread that I'm hearing is just you just acted, you created. You didn't let anything hold you back from creating. And as you created, you saw that there was another angle of the story you wanted to tell. And in order to tell that story, you had to pick up some new skills, but you just kept creating.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, that's
I
exactly
love that.
it.
I love that, because I think for people listening, we always, and often myself included, that like perfectionism of just wanting things to be perfect, it's hard to push past. Like, did you ever deal with that or struggle with that? Because how did you just have that constant flow of creating no matter what obstacle was in your way?
Well, so is your question about perfectionism, and how,
Yeah.
or is your question about obstacles?
Around perfectionism, like the obstacle that is perfectionism, right? How did you push past that? Because it seemed like you just were flowing.
Oh, it seemed like a flow. It was not a flow.
Okay.
Did it seem like a flow?
Yeah, it seemed like a flow. It seemed like,
think,
hey.
honestly, I mean, telling any story in retrospect is going to sound like a flow, right?
Right.
But there was no flow. It was definitely a lot of obstacles in the way. It was a lot of mental duress that I put myself under, honestly. And it's funny that you mentioned this idea of perfection, because that was something that still is what I'm fighting with, this idea that I have to be a certain thing by a certain time in a certain way.
Yeah.
And that for me is something that I was able to come to terms with by really getting my ass knocked down, and realizing that things don't happen on your own time. And so one thing that I would say on perfectionism and overcoming perfectionism is, a lot of times I've learned that failure is sometimes better than success. Because in your failures, you are forced to learn. You have to learn. You have to get better in order to be successful. You have to learn the lessons that are going to make you greater. And so, I feel like learning is probably the thing that I would have wanted to have as the cornerstone of my education. I guess the cornerstone of what I would have wanted somebody to tell me earlier is that you don't have to get to a certain thing so fast. You literally just have to gain experience and learn. And in order to do that, you just need to focus on where you are right now. And
I love that.
And just start to do what you can with what you have,
Yeah.
and don't focus on where you're going, or getting to that place so much. You have it in your mind, this is where I'm going, this is my direction, but you focus more on where you are, and learning what you have to learn, what's right in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's what I found, is helpful whenever I get struck down by perfection. It's this idea that, let's take a step back, let's see where we're at and what we can do right now.
One step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
It's all a mental game, though. You know,
Yeah.
it's all a mental game. I would to stay on that for a quick beat. I was just
Yeah.
thinking, you know, another thing about perfection is like what is, you know, what is perfection? It's like I think
That's a word.
all of us have all of us have our unique qualities, right? All of us are unique in our own way. We all have our specialness, our little bit of whatever it is that makes us us. And that's the perfect, you know what I'm saying? That's the idea, is like, as long as we can be true to that, that's, we're in a, you know, you're in a solid spot. Because, you know, if you think about something that's perfect, it's like you can't relate to that because you're not perfect. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yes, I do. I know what you're
yeah, you know
saying.
what I mean? I feel like
Yeah.
the imperfections are the good stuff. A lot of times,
Wow.
it's what makes us able to relate to one another. It's what makes us human.
Wow. Come on, Art.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, preacher.
I'm just saying.
Yes.
But for real, you know, that's how I feel, man. I feel like
Wow. That's what makes us
that's the
human.
truth.
That's
The
good.
imperfections are really what makes us able to connect with one another.
Hmm.
Because if you say, like, I'm struggling for perfection, and I say I'm struggling for perfection, we're imperfect people that we can have a something that we relate to right there, you know?
Yeah,
So
man.
yeah, man.
And that kind of brings us to some of our present struggles right now. You know, I know that so many people are grieving so many different types of losses right now on multiple layers. But when I just zoom into graduates right now, a lot of our audience there, you know, 18, 19, 20, 22, you know, getting ready to leave school and had so many hopes and dreams that have just kind of been put on hold.
Right.
You know, like what would you be doing right now in their position? You know, just kind of what would be some of your advice when it comes to just navigating this new world of just their careers, their finances? You know, what would be your advice to them?
Mind, body, soul.
Mm,
Mind, body, soul is hands down the one thing that I wish I would have known was so important early on.
hmm.
And I'll tell you why. Because when I was younger, I was, and I, you know, I'm still young. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'll be 30 next week. Um,
What? Come on. Let's
but just
go. I turned 30 in March.
was that?
I turned 30 in March. I just turned
Oh,
30. Yeah.
okay, okay. Happy belated.
Class of 2012, 2013. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? We're in the building. In the building. So you know, here's my thing. I think that uh, when I was early in my 20s, like I said, I was grinding a lot, you know, and I still grind hard. But,
Yeah.
you know, my mom always used to tell me, if you have a good night of sleep, if you eat well, then you'll be able to do better work. And I was always like, you know,
Mm,
whatever. I didn't
that's a
listen
good
to
point.
that. But the thing is, I was able to get the work done, and I don't want, you know, somebody's out there is probably like, you know, I can get it done, and you can get it done, but you're not going to feel good in your whole being, your
Mm,
body, which how you relate to other people isn't going to be 100%. And
yeah,
so I found that mind, body, soul, you know, finding the things that are going to keep you aligned, you know, is probably the best spend of any of your time.
hmm,
So what that means is, you know, for your mind, it's you're paying attention to what you're putting in your mind. You know, you're making sure that
that's
you're
good.
you're letting you're looking for information that's going to allow you to be where you want to be. Like you're reading the books that are going to get you in the right spot. You know, you're watch cinematography that's going to inspire you. If you're trying to be a creative
Nice.
director, then, you know, if you can't go to a museum, you know, there's museums that are on that are
They
doing
have the
virtual
virtual tours.
tours.
Yeah.
You know, like find ways that you can expose yourself to new things, and that things that are not necessarily just like memes and exciting things online, but things that are going to help you see the world in a more vast way, because our world can seem very small when we're just scrolling on Instagram,
Right.
and we're just seeing the same people over and over again. But if you look outside of that, if you try to just like search outside of that box, and like, just, you know, if you literally go on Google and type in something that you've been wondering, or that you want to know more about, you know, top 20 places to visit in the world to see before I die, you know, and you start to go on a rabbit hole of looking into, I don't know, into Spain, and then you like get, you know, interested in the architecture of Barcelona, and then all of
Right.
a sudden you're finding artists, and, you know, you're going down this sort of path of self-education. And that's the most important thing for your mind, is like figuring out ways that you can educate yourself and put yourself in a position to focus on the things that you want out of your life, you know, like only let in what you want to be a part of your life. That's what I would
Yeah.
say for your mind. You know, for your body, when I was younger, my mom was like, even before it was cool to do, she was cooking healthy food, and wanted us to like watch what we were putting in our bodies. And like I was telling you, my mentors, Ricky Minor, I always saw him with a green juice, and I was always like, what's that? You know what I mean? And the thing is, I realized later that like, by having like roommates that like had more of a health conscious way of being, and they would like feed me good stuff, and when I would start to let good things into my body, I would just feel better, you know.
Nice.
And it
Yeah.
makes sense. It's like complete sense. You like, what comes in is how you're gonna feel. But I didn't put it together when I was younger, and it really makes a difference. And then the other piece, the spiritual piece, is find the spiritual practice that feels good for you, you know, and that can be whatever feels good for
Yeah.
you. But you just need to tap into that, because that's what drives you, you know, that your soul is what's in you. So it's like,
Yeah.
whether it's going to church, or if it's meditation and yoga, like my deal is meditation, my deal is yoga and breathing. Exactly, yeah,
Yeah. It makes
breathing
a
in, baby.
difference, man. It makes a difference.
Yeah, man, it allows you to
Yeah.
connect to something bigger. You connect to what's really important. You know, there's a lot of noise in our world, and it's important for us to
Yeah.
take moments out of our day that is just stillness, and allows us to be
Hmm.
just be, you know.
Yeah.
And so if all those things are in marriage with each other and in alignment, then you're just going to feel more empowered to do whatever it is you want to do. And the pandemic and the stresses of your life, or your girlfriend, or your parents aren't, you know, treating you right, or
Right.
whatever it is, like it's all going to feel a little bit easier to manage if you're in the right state of mind.
Yeah.
And the way that you get in the right state of mind is by keeping all these things in balance. So that
I
I
love
think
it.
that's what I would do if I was in this time. I would just focus on what could be a good spiritual practice for me, that I could feel good in my soul. What could be something that I can eat and focus on, make my body healthy. And then also, what can I do to like, where is it that I want to go, and what is it that I want to be, and start to research that stuff, start to look into that stuff, and then start to work on it. That's literally what you need to do, is just do that. And
Come on.
you'll be spending a good spend of time, and you'll have a lot of time to do it. So
That's perfect, man. Thank you, Art.